Welcome to Women Building Women, the podcast with the intent of driving out animosity amongst women. I'm your host, Samantha Letshedi, and this is episode 8 Family Matters and Members Silent Beef. The woman you have become is highly likely shaped by your foundation phase and the household that you grew up in addition to life experiences. The women that have raised you have likely had an impact on your life and influenced your mannerisms, your morals, and your conduct. When I encounter disrespectful or rude women, I often ask myself, how were you raised? But then I think about the different types of households that I grew up in and the different types of abuse that I encountered. And I could have been a bitter, angry young woman, but I chose to be the complete opposite. So it can go either way. So there are two main points from today's episode: the woman you have become as a result of your background, and the silent beef that exists within families. My guest today is a familiar face. You've probably seen her in my last two episodes, Lerissa.
Hello.
That was so random. Lerissa and I met in very unfortunate circumstances, but we found love in a hopeless place. And this has become one of my most beautiful friendships, and I appreciate her so much. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Sammy.
So, let's get into it. Today's episode is a pretty heavy one, and a difficult one, and it was quite hard to get more than one guest because people are not comfortable discussing the things that have happened within their families and their traumas, childhood traumas and scars that they've carried. But someone's got to talk about it, and I'm so glad that Lerissa was brave enough to show up. Um, and the first thing that I want to find out from you, Lerissa, is how would you say the way in which your mother raised you or your upbringing in general has impacted the woman that you have become?
You were talking about how you meet some rude or bitter woman and you wonder how they were raised. I think about that often because I was not raised in the most loving and like warm households. I'll try not to bring my mother into this, but we'll talk. I think the main issue was definitely having a narcissistic father as a parent. I don't mind dragging him because, if you wanted to be a good parent or good father, then you would have been one. And unfortunately, that was my circumstance, the daddy issues. But I think seeing the way that, or just being around that abuse, seeing how he not only abused me, obviously my sibling as well, and all my other family members, growing, and also he was a very religious person, so going to temple all the time, and then coming back home, and then just mistreating and abusing your family. So watching that,
It's so contradictory.
yeah, I would watch that and I would think to myself, like, I mean, at the time, being so young, I didn't know too much, like therapy language and all the things I've learned going through therapy now. But seeing that as a little child, like the first word that I had learned that resonated with him was, I was like, oh, this hypocrite. How can you go to temple and you pray to your God and, all these things, and you come home and you abuse your family? So that, from an early age, I already was like, I don't want to be involved in religion and God and all of that if that is the way that people are. Obviously now that I'm older and I'm coming into my own spirituality, I realized that that was a him problem, and that doesn't define everyone who is religious. Not all religious people are like that. Not all people who believe in God are horrible. um, so now, I think only now, coming into my early 30s, is when I'm starting to come into my spirituality and realize that it's good for me. It's good for me to work these things out on my own instead of being forced to do I was forced to do so many things as a child because this is what he wanted. And if you didn't do that, then it's just more abuse comes, you know? And now I think I treat people the way that I want to be treated. I never want anyone to feel the way that I felt growing up. So I try to treat people with kindness and most of all understanding, because I mean, you never know what people are going through. You never know people's circumstances. And even if I do encounter somebody who's bitter, someone who's rude, someone who treats me in like a way where I'm like, that's not very nice or that's problematic, I still like take a little step back and think, you probably went through something and maybe you need to heal and do that in your own time.
Yeah.
I don't need to be involved.
Yeah. I totally relate to what you're saying. And I touched on mental health before this question, and I've noticed that because of the things that I've gone through, and like I said, the types of different women who played a part in, and I don't want to say raising me because a part of me feels like I raised myself within those different households, but the type of energy that they brought about was so negative, and that's why I said I could have chosen to be bitter. But because growing up, I lacked so much love, I decided that I want to give so much love to the world. And I think that's how Women Building Women came about, because I could see how women were treating each other and how there's just this animosity, which is my tagline, that's always so existent, and even hostility. And I was like, we don't have a reason to be that way towards one another. So the way that I grew up, as much as I could have been bitter, as I said, I chose to do the opposite and flip the script and say, you know what, this is what I felt. I don't want to feel that, and I don't want anyone else to feel it. So this is the type of person that I'm going to be towards women and people in general. So still on the point of mental health challenges obviously usually stem from your childhood. So to what extent would you say this has proven to be true in your life, and how would you raise your child differently?
To the highest extent. I mean, wait, what was the question? Just refresh.
Mental health challenges usually stem from your childhood. So right now, what you're going through now is scars from back then, traumas that you have carried throughout into your adulthood. So to what extent would you say that's true? Is that just a myth from my part, or do you believe that, and is that applicable right now in your life?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I feel like my traumas, I try not to like hold them on my back and, have them like constantly holding me back from the things that I want to achieve. But at the same time, I am an open book for the most part. And I think it's a good thing to talk about your traumas, because the more I talk about these things, and I mean, that's another reason why I'm here on the podcast with you talking about this, because I do feel comfortable talking about these things, because that's just the way that I grew up, unfortunately. And if I want people to see the real me, I also want them to understand why I'm the way that I am. Going through abuse and different kinds of trauma, it shouldn't be something that you feel embarrassed about. Because for a long time, I think me and many members of my family, there was a lot of that embarrassment, and nobody wanted to talk about things. But we should be talking about these things. These are things that are happening. These are things that are happening to many other people and women. And holding things in only, I don't know, it only holds you back from really living your life and seeing your truth. Like, I know that I was, unfairly treated, and there were many, 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 many traumas that I have lived through, but I've lived through them. I think um, accepting your traumas and also going through therapy, like many of us that are suffering with mental health issues, if you, I mean, therapy is so expensive, but if you can talk to people and find people that you can talk to openly about these things, I think it will make your life easier. It will allow you to go out there and do these things that people have told you couldn't do before, or you felt like your trauma was holding you from doing those things. So therapy is important, guys. Talking to people is important, and knowing your truth, owning your truth, showing your truth is very important.
Yeah. I think the reason that I asked this question was I remember in the first episode of this podcast, Animosity, Tiro touched on how women who obviously come from these different households, they were raised in a certain way. And with other mothers, because of the generation that they come from or the background that they have, they've learned to be competitive, like it's all about survival. And even if it means you are conniving in the process, that's what needs to be done to get to what you want. And that's how some women have been raised, and that's how they become. And then we all meet outside here in the real world, whether it be in the workplace, social settings, all the things that I've listed before about how you find this hostility. And that's what we project because that's what you learned. That was your growth process. And I'm I'm trying to get to the point where I'm like, think about how you were raised and the things that affected you and who you have become right now and who you are to other people. And the reason I'm also touching on mental health is because that's the biggest factor. It can go either way. You and I chose the same path. We said we went through this. We're not going to go out there and lash out into the world and be negative and bitter. We're going to choose to be better. Whereas there are some people that chose the bitter route, and they are these rude, disrespectful people that we are encountering in the world. And I just want to read a quote that I read from Morgan Richard. I don't know who that is, but it says, "If you knew the extent of what a person had to endure to have the impact, empathy, and outlook they have today, you wouldn't be intimidated. You would be empowered."
Mm-hmm.
And this speaks to something that you and I spoke about off the record last night, when I was taking you through my upbringing and how now that I'm all grown and it seems like I have everything together and I'm well put, you find females who encounter me, especially in the workplace. Thank God, not my current workplace, but just that's the general place where you find it, but also just in other settings in general. Women tend to not like you because they think you better. Oh, yeah, she owns an apartment, she has a car. Who does she think she is? And it's like, take some time to get to know me and get to know where I come from, because I come from struggle. Just because you see me well put today doesn't mean that I've always had handouts. But you know what? Even if I did, why should you be bitter? We have our own race that we're running, you know?
It
So,
literally doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what you are doing with your life and all the things you've achieved, it doesn't matter what, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Like, you know your truth.
yeah.
Also, some people might just not have the capacity to want to get to know you, and that's okay. They don't need to get to know you. The people that want to get to know you and want to know your story, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
If somebody is not taking the time to understand, or if someone's just assuming, oh, look at this one with her car, with her house, whatever, you have no idea how that person got to where they are. So them thinking that, it's just childish, it's just
Yeah.
inconsequential.
Yeah. I think the worst for me is, when it's people out there, people that you don't know, or acquaintances basically. It's okay. It's whatever. But when it comes from within your family, that's
Mm.
another story, and that's a hard pill to swallow. So I have obviously cousins and aunts, and most of them, I'd say, we don't really have much of a relationship. And with my aunts, like, their daughters decided to have children when they were like still young, still in school. Some didn't matriculate, and you find that my other aunt is always like putting up my graduation photos like on her story, like just bragging and boasting about me. And you can tell that they don't really like that, because the vibes that they give me are pretty off. So I can sense some sort of jealousy coming from them, and feelings of, oh yeah, she thinks she's better because she finished school, she went off to Johannesburg. And there's even comments of like, yeah, because she doesn't have any children, she should be giving us money, like
Mm.
things like that. Like, oh, okay, so you must spend my money, the one that I'm working very hard for. So that's where we dive into the silent beef part of this episode. So I want to find out, how would you describe your relationship with your aunts, cousins, and other female members of the family?
Non-existent. I mean, I feel like you know my or being my father's daughter has definitely had a negative impact on my relationships with my extended family, my cousins and aunts and stuff, because like sometimes I feel like they just look at me like that man's daughter, you know?
Mm.
But nobody ever did anything for us growing up. Nobody ever tried to protect us, tried to understand what we were going through. It was, I don't know if it's a brown family thing where you just don't talk about the bad things. You
Yes.
only want to see the good.
It's like they have amnesia. Like,
Literally, like
it is.
whenever most of my family's in Durban. Um, but whenever I had been down to Durban, they very well aware of everything that we've been through as a family, but nobody ever wants to talk about it. They'll giggle and they'll laugh, and they'll make jokes about my father and what a horrible person he was or whatever. But meantime, I still have to go home to that man.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are kikiing here, but I still have to go home and live live with this, until I'm old enough. And finding my voice as I've grown up and out of the abuse, I don't think that they respected that either, because to them, like, me finding my voice was me just being loud again. Loud like my father. Because for the most part, my family's pretty they're like quiet people. And no one wants to talk about difficult things. They only want to laugh and they only want to party or whatever it is. But as soon as I'm speaking out about things that upset me, or like, I remember one time I walked in, like, it was my mom, my brother, and I, and we were visiting my aunts and cousins. And I walked into the room, and my aunts and uncles and cousins, they were like, they were saying something about my father. And I walked in there and I was like, I don't like how you guys are laughing about this, or, making jokes and stuff. And they thought that I was protecting my father. They thought that I was upset that they were talking about my father. No, I'm not upset that you're talking about him. I'm upset that you guys are busy giggling here. No, none of you have ever done anything to make sure that we're okay. But you're sitting and you're laughing here and you're making jokes. Like, what is that doing to help us,
Yep.
Like, maybe think about the fact that I'm a child. At that time, I was a child,
Yeah.
So when I finally find my voice and I'm standing up and I'm being loud about the things that upset me and that I don't like, or the behaviors that I don't like, that makes me just like him because I'm loud. So now I'm still speaking my truth. They don't speak to me very much. And I don't think that they're very understanding about that. But fortunately, I've made many friends along the way, which I consider my family, because they are the ones that have allowed me to be myself, to be open, to talk about my traumas instead of hiding it and, going to my room and crying. And, now I'm able to talk about these things. Talking about it helps me cry a little bit less, and I understand that it was never really my fault, and I am working on being a better person and not becoming or letting my trauma define who I am now. So, yeah, I think regardless of family, like family can be in close proximity to you and still not understand or still have those old school mentalities of, women being quiet and, you're a woman, you just have to sit back and take it. Go to the kitchen, make a curry. Go
You
make some
just had
roti,
to. And it's so funny because I feel like you've already answered my next question. I was going to ask you, what is the general atmosphere or vibe at family gatherings? And you've sort of touched on this. And like with my family, for instance, everyone has a, a bitter or negative part that they've played. Like you have my sister who blew our estate money to the point where I didn't have money for school fees, uniform, food, and thank God, there was a family that helped me in that process. And then I have a family member who would just like hit me for no reason, was also emotionally abusive. Um, like there's just been so many things and there's different roles that they've played. But then when we get to these family gatherings, it's like, I don't know, have we all forgotten? So now I'm gonna sit there and be cheerful, and we must take photos. Like there's this one who always likes wanting to take photos with me. I don't know, so she can show people or what. And I'm thinking, you're one of the worst. Like you play the biggest role in my scars, and you want to act like we all smiley in photos. Like life is great. So I hate, like when I think about gatherings, I'm just like, ugh, okay, fake smiles and shit. There we go again. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add on anything, but I feel like you did with what you just explained.
I mean, there's a reason why I haven't been to any family gatherings in close to now 7 years. It's been like almost 7 years that I haven't been to Durban, which makes me incredibly sad because I am a very loving person and I want that. Like I feel like I so desperately crave that like family intimacy and relationships with all the women in my family. There's so many beautiful women in my family, but I just want them to be understanding. Like I am my own person. Like now, they look at me and they see like the tattoos and the piercing. It's not even a lot, but to them, I'm like I might as well, be fully covered because I look weird. I'm not like a traditional Indian girl.
It's like you some rebel.
I'm so rebellious. Like why you're not actually getting to know the inner me, like I think I am so beautiful on the inside, and a lot of my family tends to like not want to see that side. I don't know why, because they see the outside and they think, look at her, she's she's gay, she got tattoos, she got piercings, like she's not gonna be an accountant or whatever. And just it makes me sad because I feel like I have never quite lived up to whatever they have expected of me, but at the same time they haven't quite understood as to why I've made the decisions I've made. And yeah, I would love to go to Durban again and see my family, but unfortunately the next time that's going to happen is probably going to be at my granny's funeral. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and I know it's gonna and I know everybody's gonna be like, oh Lerissa, I haven't seen you in so long, blah, blah, blah. Like what am I gonna do? I saw one of my uncles recently, actually this year. He hasn't spoken to me in a long time because he doesn't like my father. So by extension, you don't like me. I don't even like my own father. But he came up to me. I was with a friend and I was like, oh my God, that's my uncle, but I haven't spoken to him in so long. And he came up to me and he greeted me and he was like, hey, how you doing? And then I messaged him like a few days later, no response. So why do you come and greet me in person to show face in front of your new partner? But like when I actually want to have a conversation and get to know you guys, nobody wants to do that.
You know what? Also, anything to protect your peace, hey? If seeing these people is disturbing your peace, then just stay away. Honestly, I remember in one of the group therapy sessions, we had to write a letter to someone who from your family or whoever has mistreated you. One of like the main people who are the reason that you are currently in therapy. And that was the hardest shit ever because for so long I knew that I wanted to express like and tell them how they've made me feel because it seems like we've all forgotten, like life has moved on and now they want to sing praises, but in a way of like when we had gatherings they'll be like, oh yeah, I raised Samantha, because now it seems like Samantha's at a certain point, she's accomplished certain things, so I want to let y'all know that she was in my household. I'm the reason she is the woman that she is right now. And that really frustrates me. So in that group therapy session, while we were writing the letters, I was like, damn, I have like probably 4 letters to write. It's not just one, but I'll focus on the main one. It helped me release, but at the same time, I still didn't feel like it was enough. I feel like I've had a problem with forgiving, but also I've told myself that I have forgiven even without an apology.
Yeah.
And over the years, I thought I was fine until I started resenting these people. There was one, my cousin, she used to bully me when we were younger. And last year, she sent me the longest message I've ever seen in my life. Like on WhatsApp where it has that read more and then there's read more again. It was the most sincere, genuine apology. And after that, she called me. She was like, Sam, I remember each and every single thing that I did to you. And I realized that it was a me problem. And I've been going to therapy. And after the number of sessions that I've had and what I've come to learn about myself, I realized how much I hurt you, but it was a problem that I had. And I can only imagine how that affected you. And I sincerely apologize. And I felt it. And I think I felt it even more because I didn't go up to her and remind her, hey, you did this and this to me. That's the reason I'm like this right now. And I'm carrying these scars. She's the one who came to me. And that is one apology which I will forever remember and hold dear in my heart. And even right now, like, we're good. I love her. Like, we're great. We have a great relationship. But the others act like nothing ever happened. We never did anything to you, girl. We're all good. Like, even now, they'll call me asking me for money. Like, it's just, it's like, I don't know. Like I said, it's like they have amnesia. And I still find it difficult. I have opened up to, well, some people now in the family, and I've also expressed to certain individuals, and I took them through the timeline. I was like, this happened, that happened. The thing is, when you're the one who's causing all that pain, I think you sort of forget about it. I don't know, but
I don't even think it's a thing of them forgetting. I think taking accountability and realizing that, or knowing that you have caused somebody pain and suffering, like, it's not an easy thing to have to admit. And some people just cannot come to that realization because if they say it out loud, it will feel like, they're admitting to being this person that they no longer want to be.
yeah,
But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, I was a shitty person when I was younger. Time goes on and people grow. Like,
yeah,
it's okay if you were a shitty person 10 years ago, as long as you're not a shitty person now.
yeah,
And if you can make amends and you are doing better and you feel like you can treat your loved ones better, then you should. And no one's ever going to hold you against it,
yeah,
Taking accountability is so, so, so important. And again, like, I think going back to like your first question, it's another reason why I'm the way that I am. And now, as soon as somebody, a friend or family, tells me about something that I've done that upsets them, I immediately take accountability, because I never had that. I never had people taking accountability for how they made me feel. So I was always sitting with that guilt, wondering, oh, what is it that I'm doing that is making these people treat me this way? It's nothing that I'm doing. It's a them problem. And when they can acknowledge that this is how they treated you and this is behavior that they no longer want to continue with, life will get so much better, guys. Your life will grow. Like, it's never too late to improve your life and become a better person.
yeah,
And we should always give people grace to become better. It's very difficult when you're dealing with narcissistic people,
yeah,
because no matter what, they will just never.
yes,
But for the most part, most people will get to that point where they will be able to understand that they hurt you. It's not something they want to do again, and they can apologize. What are you gonna lose from apologizing?
exactly,
If anything, you have more to gain.
yeah. So just circling it back to the letter that I was talking about in therapy. So it was so much easier to write it down, but not deliver the letter.
Oh, you had to deliver it as well.
No, you didn't have to. It was up to you if you want to burn it or whatever. So, lastly, I want to find out from you, what would you like to tell those in your family who have mistreated you or not cared for you? What's your message to them? I know you said you're very vocal, so you probably have already told them off, girl. But tell it to the camera.
I mean, I think, like, in my past, I was very, I was vocal, but I was vocal without taking a step back and really thinking about what I want to say and how I want to articulate myself. And now that I've been through therapy and I'm also understanding other people's behaviors towards me, like I would just like them to know that I did not have a very easy childhood. Growing up was very, very difficult. They played a part in that. Um, and they may have been going through things as well. I forgive them. But I am my own person. I will do what I want. I've had to fight a long time for myself, for my family. I've had to fight to find my own voice and, not being pushed in a corner. So I'm the way that I am because this is it's my survival instinct. I'm not I'm not shy anymore because it doesn't serve me to be quiet. And I will always speak my truth because that's where I find I make meaningful connections. And if you guys take the time to get to know me, then, maybe our connection and maybe like our bond might grow. Like now I'm finding these amazing family connections, sisterly connections with my friends. I would love to have that with my family. But we don't need to stick on the past. I just need you to understand that it was not a very easy childhood for me. And I am becoming a better person and I'm becoming somebody that I quite like. And I think if
You
they
should love that person. We love
yeah,
her.
like I think you would really love me if you got to know me beyond what you're seeing, beyond the person that you thought I would be or you want me to be. I'm also not my father. I'm not my father. I'm not my trauma. And I care a lot about the people around me. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I just want to conclude on the two main points that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, which are the main points of the episode is firstly, think about the little girls that you are raising because these are the women that you're sending out into the world. That's the first thing. Secondly, women, ladies, young women, girls out there, before you come driving your animosity, hostility bus and bumping into another woman with it, just take a moment to think about this person could be going through something. And even if they are not deserving of this hostility. Choose to be kind or rather choose to walk away. That's my ask for today.